Hello there, good evening and welcome to State of Affairs here on GHOne television. And always, every Monday night, you know that we have a date basically talking about critical issues affecting Ghana. And tonight we'll be looking at a myriad of issues, particularly that have to do with financial issues, where we stand currently, our exchange rate, and quite a number, especially because we've had a review with the IMF. We've gone for the fourth review meeting. What really were the uptakes? We've heard some details from what happened there. The IMF particularly impressed with quite a number of things happening. But we're here to break it down and also look at basically how things are panning out. And my guest for tonight is no stranger to the show. He's been here before. We had a conversation, and then he's assumed a new role as a member of the governing board of the Bank of Ghana. He's the Member of Parliament for Bolgatanga Central, Isaac Adongo. Mr. Adongo, welcome.
Yeah, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing well. I hope you're doing well.
I'm managing.
You're managing? But I thought you would be doing better than managing now.
Because we're still not out of the woods. We're
Right.
still doing a lot to try and create the comfort level that Ghanaians want. So until that is achieved, we can only be managing.
And how are things looking up, really, in terms of how our finances, among others, are looking at?
Things are looking up.
Okay.
We are not completely out of the woods, but we seem to be having a handle on some of the major issues that have plagued our country. And the signals are showing that if we continue to go at that level, we shall meet almost all the conditions and all the indicators that we have agreed with the IMF. And the economy would be back to where we want it to be. We are seeing relative stability in the forex market. We know that to move from 4 cedi to the dollar all the way to 17, it will take quite a lot of work. But there is a game changer on the block. The good thing for the people of Ghana is that the single most important policy that His Excellency John Dramani Mahama has introduced to anchor the stability of the country, and being headed by one of his brilliant young men, Sami Jeffrey, the Gold Board.
The Gold Board.
Yeah, is showing early signs of being a great game changer. And I want to commend Sami Jeffrey and his team and the Minister for Finance and the vision of His Excellency John Dramani Mahama to put that idea together. Especially when you consider that we were completely locked out of the capital market, where we got most of our inflows, to fund our external obligations in terms of forex.
Yes.
We were wondering how we could do this, and at the moment, it appears that we are moving much faster than the IMF itself expected, and that is even before the Gold Board becomes fully operational. You could see the impact it is already having on the interbank market, the relative confidence that it has brought into the economy, and the fact that together with other policies, we have basically tamed the Forex Bureau market. So most of the speculation that was feeding into the Forex rates and all that is beginning to subside, and we think that that would give us a lot of a lift. We know that a lot of the inflation problems we are having is also coming from the Forex side. So once we're able to deal with the Forex, then we can deal with the imported inflation that we've been suffering, and we can relatively get a handle on the fuel prices at the pump. So things are looking good.
I remember, since you've mentioned the Forex, I remember you saying some time ago that the Bank of Ghana has the rate, but then Abochi has the dollar.
Yeah.
Is that still the case now?
So right now, the issue is that Abochi even doesn't have the dollars. And that is how we have brought Abochi.
Right.
What we have done is that Abochi was profiting from the non-formalization of a major strand of our exchange earnings, which is gold. the small-scale gold mining sector.
Right.
What happened was that people were selling their gold, and when they are paid the cedis, they go to the forest market, to convert that into dollars, and that put a lot of pressure on the market. Now, with the gold board, the only recognized authorized authority to deal in gold trade in Ghana is the gold board. So what is now happening is that all those CD resources that are going into the purchase of gold now apply the interbank rate as a means of pricing gold, which traditionally is priced in foreign currency. So you have to match that with the applicable rate, the weighted average of those prices in Ghana. And when you do that, you realize that we are eventually getting a handle on those speculative activities that those funds were feeding into the forex market. But also, the second most important thing that we are seeing is that if you couple that with the enforcement on the Bank of Ghana notice and directive, that Ghana legal tender is the cedi.
Yes.
So if you open a dollar account and you need the money to spend in Ghana, you cannot be spending dollars in Ghana. You must be spending cedis.
In cedis, yes.
So if you appear at a counter, yes, we have a dollar account, but we'll give you the cedis. Okay. So if you need those dollars, actually it must be for purposes of external transactions. That means that you would get the dollars to the extent that it enables you to meet your external obligations, which is not in the cedis, but it's in the dollars. So the demand for dollars is now restricted to transactionary demand for dollars.
Right.
Not speculation, not precaution. All we are saying is that if you need dollars for business activities, by all means you'll be given the dollars. But if you need it just to put in your pocket and to hide somewhere else, unfortunately we'll give you the cedis. So that has eliminated a great deal of the speculation that was fueling that. Coupled with the fact that we are more or less, clamping the wings of the Forex Bureau market, where they wouldn't have these speculative tendencies, we are beginning to see some level of stability return to the forex market.
Okay. So my guest is Isaac Adongo. He's a member of Parliament for Bolga Central. He's also a board member of the Bank of Ghana. And we're having this conversation because we've also gone to another review, a fourth review with the IMF. And the outcome is that the IMF says that, among other things, they have an optimistic and positive outlook for us. I'll let him break it down for us and tell me exactly what the outcome of the fourth review was.
Yes, so the fourth review really looked at a number of indicators that we have signed on to. And the fulfillment of those benchmarks will trigger a board decision in June to release the next tranche. So we are not completely at the point of receiving the inflows, but we have done enough work to be able to convince the board that Ghana's program is on the right trajectory. And that even though when we came in, certain indicators have slipped, we have quickly done a lot of work to try, if not fix them, but to give an indication that we have very bold measures to bring it back on track. And the IMF, is comfortable with those arrangements. So for instance, one of the biggest problems that we had to deal with payables, arrears. The IMF program said that you should do a zero net of arrears. What it means is that you cannot add on to the arrears. And at the time, we were moving from 25 billion. But we came and saw that we had inherited over 45 billion, which means that we had slipped on that benchmark by over 25 billion Ghana cedis. So we needed to get back on track. So what did we do? We introduced a number of reforms that are acceptable to the IMF. One of the reforms was that we need to curb the incidence of commitment controls, which were lacking, to the extent that we have some commitment in excess of 21 billion sitting with just one agency. And yet, those people didn't even have financial clearance to do those kind of procurement. So we have amended the law, the PPA, the Public Procurement Authority law, to make the PPA the policeman for those procurements, so that the PPA should not even consider reviewing your application to procure if you don't have financial clearance. From the Ministry of Finance. So those commitment controls now realize that we now have a policeman who obviously is normally the one who approves those transactions that are originating from the ministries, departments, and agencies. And we have found somebody to sit there and watch you. So when you arrive, you say, where is your financial clearance? You don't have it, unfortunately. That is a requirement before we can even consider your application. So we are beginning to have a handle on the commitment controls. And we have extended that to the government-wide expenditure. Some of the agencies do not spend out of government appropriation, but they spend on their balance sheet. So if you take, for instance, ECG, what is happening at ECG, they just go ahead and procure through the PPA. Now we have extended this requirement to say that even for those agencies, they need the clearance and the concurrence of the Minister for Finance, because in the end, they constitute what we call contingent obligation on the state. If those agencies were not able to pay, they will have to call on the government to pay. And so government needs to know what is happening across, and we are tightening that. In fact, together with Parliament, there are conversations going on as to whether or not we shouldn't even do a thorough review of our auditors who audit government organizations. How on earth can you be an auditor of ECG and you don't develop an audit program that is able to take care of a major risk in the operations of ECG? That major risk is the procurement and utilization of imported items within its operational cycle. So if we need to now go beyond just saying that your audit has been signed off to understanding what informed the audit strategy, to what extent did the audit strategy address the inherent risk in the operations of that organization. So most of that is being discussed at the level of the State Interest Committee in Parliament, together with the Ministry of Finance, to try and fine-tune some of these processes and put responsibility squarely on the people who express opinion on those accounts without really doing the work that they need to do. And so that should bring some reform that can improve the situation.
Interesting. Now, I'm curious about how we performed last year, 2024, because when you look at the mission, they seem to be pointing to the fact that we have grown more than expected.
Yes.
They had benchmarks for us, but it looks like we are exceeding that.
Yes, so
in this first
like
quarter.
I said, you see, confidence and trust is very key in the management of any economy. So you would notice that one of the challenges of Ghanaians when it comes to paying taxes is the fact that Ghanaians don't believe that we are taxing them fairly.
Right.
And that they can trust us that when even they give us the money, we will spend wisely. There has been a paradigm shift where in this budget, the Minister for Finance, together with the Cabinet of Ghana, pointed to a clear decision to take more from the rich to fund activities that benefit the poor. And you would have seen the implication already. Most of the pro-poor programs are being launched. Yesterday, His Excellency was launching a program to take care of over 10,000 Ghanaian youth who are unemployed through the National Apprenticeships Program. He's thinking about giving back to healthcare.
Well, the apprenticeship program, that's on Wednesday.
Yeah, on the way, but also to give back to the people of Ghana who pay taxes but find themselves in health challenges of debilitating circumstances.
The Mahama case.
The Mahama case is a game changer that will revolutionize healthcare in our country, but that also will provide a safety net for people who are terminally ill but cannot have the funding to take care of themselves. In addition to the fact that we are likely to implement our policy on free primary health care.
Yes.
So together with Mahama Cares, we will see a completely new healthcare regime. And the people of Ghana are looking at this and they say, look, these guys can be trusted. They are being fair with us. We are beginning to see the dividends of the taxes that we pay. And they are also beginning to see that the tax regime that we are operating is one that fairly distributes the burden of development. So we scrap the e-levy to try and reward the poor. Okay, we took up the betting tax, and all those taxes that burden the poor, in order that we distribute fairly the burden of national development and make the rich pay more proportionately.
And that sends the right signal to...
That sends the right signal. So we are developing trusts within our fiscal regime, we are taxing fairly, and we are spending wisely. And Ghanaians are very appreciative of that. That is a major legacy that His Excellency John Dramani Mahama will leave with the people of Ghana. Yes, it is okay to develop the country, but you must do so in a way that engenders trust in the resources that you spend, and to make sure that the resources really go to the poor and the vulnerable.
Now, it's interesting you touched on the taxes that were scrapped, e-levy, betting tax. Now, there are some analysts that say that now it's okay because we are in an IMF program. Now, the minute we exit the program, the government would have to now find other ways to shore up revenue, and that might include or may include the introduction of other taxes.
Yes, so we are on an IMF program.
Yes, we are.
We are projecting to grow the revenue base to about 200 billion from about 196 billion. This is without those obnoxious taxes on the poor. Now, by the time we exit this program, we expect the economy to begin to respond to some of the stimulus that we are putting together. We haven't even started scratching the surface because we will now be dealing with generating some sustainable jobs and creating expansion of the economy when we begin to implement the 24-hour economy. And that 24-hour economy gives us the potential to expand the base of our economy and to expand the sources from which we can tax revenue.
Okay.
So we may not need to go back to those taxes because the economy itself will respond and will give us the opportunity to find niches where we still can make the money and any additional revenues that we need. But what is important is that at this point in time, we want to give clarity and focus to the private business community that they can be able to plan and they can execute their business programs because of the stable macroeconomic environment. If inflation is coming down and you are beginning to see that your growth is real growth, not convoluted, price increment type of growth, but growth underpinned by real output. And that if you are producing, you can be sure that your inflation is going to stay very close to the medium-term band of 8% plus or minus 2. That gives you a planning framework that you can plan. If your exchange rate is being anchored, and it has been very difficult for the exchange rate to escape where it is now for quite a long while. We are not saying that we are there yet, but it seems that we are doing something right. And some of the key measures that have generated the confidence have not even started bearing fruit. So imagine if they begin to bear fruit. What will happen to the exchange rate? And Ghanaians will be excited that they now have a regime where they can plan the external implication on their businesses.
I'm sure you've heard from your very good friend, the former finance minister, Mohamed Amin, and he's mentioned that the success of the fourth review that would result in the $370 million injection into our economy has nothing to do with the NDC.
I don't know what that means. Was he the one who passed the gold ball bill? Or was an inflation not a monetary policy consultative activity under the IMF program? The IMF comes to you based on the data. You sit with them and agree an inflation target. We call it monetary consultation framework. And when you engage in that, you couldn't deliver it. A new government comes in, it is able to tell you where it is going to anchor inflation. And you already begin to see the signs. And that gives you the comfort that even the slippages from the past can be addressed. And you say that is your program. The only credit we can give them is that they mismanage this economy to the extent that they deny their own promise never to go back to the IMF. So how can people who promise the people of Ghana that no matter what we do, we are not going back there, and the people who are asking us to go there are naysayers? Now you want to praise yourself that you did what you said you wouldn't do. You know, it's laughable. And the important thing is that we just returned from the IMF spring meeting.
Yes.
And the IMF is full of praise because Ghana is once again becoming the poster boy for the IMF. And the IMF, in the midst of all the difficulties in the world, is looking for an example like Ghana to sell to the rest of the world.
Interesting. And so what really is the basis that for the declaration that we are not going to extend our program with the IMF?
So the program objectives is what matters.
Right.
And we have seen enough work that we have done. And we have seen the result that is coming out of the work that we have done. And even more to be done. And we think that if it continues on that trajectory, we shall achieve the objectives of the IMF program, and that it will not be necessary to review because we are on course to achieving the program objectives. And it is the basis for which we think that revisions are unnecessary. Of course, there are pockets of risk to the program that we are discussing with the IMF. If you take, for instance, now, there's a lot of liquidity in the market, and there's a lot of appetite, even from non-resident investors, to put money in Ghana. But because of, thanks to the Baomiers of this world, the Amin Anta and the Ken Oforiates of this world, the whole world fears Ghana when it comes to giving money to Ghana.
And what do you mean by that? That thanks to them?
Yeah, because they manage Ghana into debt distress and declare Ghana bankrupt. Okay? And we are the descendants of the people who don't pay their bills. And yet we are supposed to go out there and tell the people that their children will pay the bills. It's a very difficult sell. But they have seen enough to trust us. And they are willing to support us. Now, the conversation we're having with the IMF is that, look, we agree that we don't have an opportunity to open the market, but debt sustainability is not just about the quantum of the debt, but also the risk inherent in the debt portfolio. And we are beginning to see that because we cannot operate in the longer term and we are operating on the short end, we are beginning to accumulate our public debt on the shorter end, therefore creating a possible refinancing difficulty. We want an opportunity not to add on to the debt, but to smoothen the yield curve by being able to move some of those portfolios into longer dated instruments so that there isn't much pressure on government to every week be on the market looking for 6 billion. But we could be on the market looking for some 2 billion, 3 billion, which is manageable. And even if the current liquidity dries out, we would have been home and dry. So those conversations are being had. We are also aware that per the IMF own program, our debt sustainability analysis treats holdings of non-residents in our bonds as external debt. So we are looking at how we can get a respite so that there are some harms that are on the way. There are some instruments that are maturing in bulk, lump sums. So can we have an arrangement where we can do a market operation at a much lower rate than the rate that we are currently paying on those instruments, so that we can then swap those instruments and not necessarily add on to the public debt, but to smoothen the pressure on us and deal with the volatilities that are occurring because of the tenure and the refinancing difficulties we have. And I think that IMF has seen a lot of trust from us, and we do believe that the confidence that we have generated and the fact that we are actually moving ahead of time would encourage the IMF to give us a dispensation to try and solve some of those lingering risks within our debt portfolio. And that is now the main focus of the Minister for Finance.
So, even also, we've also had some concerns. Some say it's very concerning. Others say, well, it's not a big deal.
What is not concerning?
The fact that the IMF has revised our growth target to below 4%.
So Ghana is not an island. We operate within the global financial system. And within the global financial system, there are a lot of uncertainty resulting from what we call the tripartite trade war between US, China, and Canada. Now, these blocks constitute a greater chunk of the global economy. And we all are impacted by how these economies grow. And the global forecast is that the economy is going to take a hit globally, and that the global forecast is that we are going to grow globally at 2.8 percent, and that is far lower. And Ghana is not an island, so there are bits and pieces that are spread across the globe in terms of the impact of that. As we speak now, there is a forecast that the American economy may face massive sellout of dollar-denominated instruments, and there's going to be that challenge of excess forex liquidity, particularly dollar liquidity. Now, we having closed off the market, so how do we tap into those flows to support our economy and to lessen our external vulnerability and strengthen the cedi? Okay?
Right.
We can borrow. So how do we do that? And that is why I tell you that the gold board will turn out to be the singular most important anchor of external vulnerability. Because those instruments, those liquidity, must find alternative investment.
Right.
And there are no better alternative investment globally than precious metals. And we were blessed with precious metals. And we are consciously deciding to develop a legal framework that optimizes that resource to our country, the gold.
Right.
So if there's going to be huge demand for gold globally, it means that the price of gold will go up again, and that is a major resource that we can use to counter the fact that we cannot be on the capital market to borrow. And we are doing a lot,
Right.
Already to make sure that that happens. Sami Jemfi has done a wonderful job together with his team.
Right.
The finance ministry has been very supportive. In fact, during the time that we're passing the bill that has formed the gold board, one of the areas of departure between the government in power and our colleagues on the other side was a provision that we put there to allow the Ministry of Finance to support the gold board to take advantage of an opportunity, such as the one we are looking at.
Right.
So
well, I'll come back to that shortly. And I'm interested in that particular story about the gold board. And so, yes, you're still watching State of Affairs here on GHOne television. My guest is Isaac Adongo, and I've got exciting news for you. So if you're an MTN subscriber already, I've got good news for you. You want to get another SIM card because the network is providing all the things that you want from your MNO. Well, the news is that you can get another SIM card for just 10 Ghana cedis. Now, if you're not an MTN subscriber, you also want to get to benefit from all that MTN is offering, you can also get a SIM card for as little as 10 Ghana cedis. Yes, I know it sounds too good to be true, but that is the case. 10 Ghana cedis will get you an MTN SIM card for you to enjoy all the benefits that are associated with being on Ghana's biggest network, MTN, everywhere you go. So visit any of MTN's shops in your neighborhood. Also go to your community guy who sells mobile phone SIM cards, among others, and get that SIM card for a cool 10 Ghana cedis. This is State of Affairs here on GH1 Television. I am Joshua Kodjo Mensah. We're right back after this break. Well, welcome back. This is State of Affairs here on GH1 Television with me, Joshua Kodjo Mensah. Tonight, I'm sitting with Isaac Adongo, Member of Parliament for Bolgatanga Central. He's also a member of the board of Bank of Ghana. And we're talking about the IMF program. We're talking about the economy, the outlook, how things are turning out, among others. But I have got exciting news for you, because if you're an already MTN subscriber, and because of how important or exciting the services are, you're looking to get another SIM card, you don't have to worry at all. For just a cool 10 Ghana cedis, you can get access to an MTN SIM card. Now, if you're on any of the other networks, and of course you cannot make calls because the network does not get access in that area, your data is not functioning properly. When you buy data, you just lose everything. Then switch to MTN now for a cool 10 Ghana cedis. All you need to do is to walk into any of our shops, MTN shops in your community, or the guy that sells, credits, cards, and sells all those appliances, or basically, I should say, network data and all those things in your area. Get to him, and for a cool 10 Ghana cedis, you can get an MTN SIM card. The exciting part is that all you need to go with as your Ghana card to get your SIM card registered. MTN everywhere you go. So Isaac Adongo, before we went on that break, we were talking about the game changer, the gold board, and then the point of departure between you and your colleagues in Parliament when it came to trying to make sure that there is a provision that would make the Finance Ministry step in. Talk to me about that.
Yes, so we anticipated that depending on the global dynamics, there may be an opportunity to scale up the purchase and export of gold by the gold board.
Right.
And we thought that a provision should be in there that empowers the Minister of Finance to extend a helping hand to the gold board and provide them with additional resources to take advantage of that. And I'm saying that we've not even gone anywhere, and the projections that we are seeing, and if you have read David Roach's own analysis of the U.S. economy, and he's a famous economist from Quantum Strategy, he says that America is likely to see between 10 to 15% sell-off of its investment because of the geopolitical tensions that are happening, the tariff war, the tripartite tariff war between America, China, and Canada on the other hand. There is going to be an urgent need for people to sell off their investment in dollar-denominated transactions, but also that there is a growing appetite across the globe to de-dollarize the global economy and begin to build other blocks that support, a more inclusive global economy, not one that is largely dictated by Donald Trump and his people. And if that happens, what it will mean is that the world will be worse ashore of dollar-denominated resources that are looking for investment in emerging markets. And I'm saying that we, as part of the emerging markets, cannot benefit from that from the normal financial instrument market because we've been blocked from operating in that space. And yet we need the forex to be able to stabilize our economy. So there may be an opportunity in there for people to want to buy precious metals. And God has blessed us with gold, diamond, and bauxite. So what it simply means is that His Excellency John Dramani Mohammed's vision was not even a long-term vision. It didn't have to take 10 years for people to see.
So it's starting materializing.
Already. So they now must understand why we're insisting that that provision should be put there. And I remember at some point just trying to get it through and being in the middle of all this to try and moderate my colleagues on the other side and the government side. I reached out to Sami Jemfi, and he was very emphatic, together with the Minister of Finance, that it would cripple the capacity of the gold board to take advantage of emerging opportunities that will present itself. And I'm seeing that already happening even before the end of the year. And the reason he was so passionate about it is that it is the only route through which we can tap into this dollar-denominated forex that would be available looking for investment in the emerging market. So the gold board will turn out to be the singular most important anchor of our foreign currency for a long time to come.
And it's quite interesting because it's one of the first appointments John Mahama did.
Yes. And you know that young man is sharp, okay?
Talking about Sami Jemfi.
You just need to give me a briefing. If Sami Jemfi just calls you to say, this issue, what do you think about it? And if you give him the briefing and you sit behind the TV and watch him, you'll be imagining whether he is now briefing you or he is speaking your briefing. That is how sharp he is. And he's grown very quickly into this area. One of the things that we are discussing at the moment is that we know that gold trading has a lot of treasury and risk management challenges. And there are several compliance issues that we need to assist the gold board to develop a treasury and robust risk management regime. But also that together with the central bank, there must be a much more longer horizon to appreciate that this benefit that we are getting may also in the end could become our Achilles heels because gold prices are not going to rise indefinitely. And gold prices, as we have seen in the past, for those of you who were around in the 1990s, 98, 99, my uncle, Dr. Sam Jonah, when he was managing Goldfields, they entered into some forward sales of their gold. And when you enter into those contracts, in order to ensure the sanctity of the contract, you create what we call a margin account, where a certain percentage of the contract is put there in order to ensure the contract is executed. And so the price developments at the time, all of a sudden, the Bank of England decided to offload its gold in the vault. And the price of gold went tumbling, and AGC was called upon to do margin calls, and they didn't have $250 million. So even though they had a lot of gold buried on the ground,
Yes.
it simply didn't have the financial resources to protect and provide a right to underwrite those agreements. And that was what led to the sale of AGC to Anglo Gold Ashanti. So we are aware that there could be some danger in the horizon,
right.
and we need to develop the capacity for Ghana to know when to slow down, on building their reserves a lot into gold, exiting and making sure that we are safe and right. So we are looking at all of that. And I do believe that the gold board, unlike cocoa board in the past, would be one of the most efficient risk-based institutions that His Excellency John Mahama would deliver to the people of Ghana.
Now, let's look at Treasury bills.
Yes.
Now, the decreasing rates, interest rates for Treasury bills, I mean, when you look at it, it's resulted in some form of undersubscriptions. And should we see that as a problem?
So, I think for 2 weeks we saw some undersubscription.
Yes.
And that was because initially the market wasn't prepared for it. And therefore, the market began to look at alternative investment, which is the Bank of Ghana's own open market operation, financial instruments. But Bank of Ghana's operations normally have, the last ones that they did had a tenure of about 56 days.
Right.
Whereas the government can give you up to 1 year tenure, 6 months tenure, and 3 months tenure. So on the basis of that, you can see that there are differences. But you need to appreciate the fact that these two institutions operate different mandates and from different, market perspective. So whereas the monetary policy activities are meant to ensure that monetary policy has an anchor on inflation, the fiscal authorities, that's the government, its borrowing regime is meant to ensure that we are able to have a much efficient financing of the budget. And the financing of the budget is a cost to the ordinary citizens of Ghana. And we want to be able to do that in a more efficient manner that doesn't burden the ordinary taxpayer a lot. Whereas the cost of borrowing from the Bank of Ghana is a monetary policy activity where the central bank has its own way of raising money and making profit and making sure that the profit that it makes out of monetary activities are sufficient to cover the cost of operating monetary policy. We call it policy solvency. So if you decide that because government is paying 14-15%, I'm rushing to go and buy Bank of Ghana.
Bank of Ghana.
There is a reason why Bank of Ghana instruments are short-dated. They are not even up to 2 months. Because monetary policy depends on regular flow of data and reassessing the monetary options that are available to you. So even though the government is monetary policy, Bank of Ghana is borrowing at a higher rate, it is only a window of, let's say, 1 month for which they take a decision, say, look, we are coming down. Now, at that time, you are locked in at a shorter end.
Yes.
So if they pay you your money after the tenure, what do you do with that money? You now have to come to the market of the Treasury bills and buy at a lower rate. Whereas you could have locked in for 3 months, 6 months, and 1 year at a higher rate. So the decision-making processes are different.
Right.
So if you decide to go on the short end with the Bank of Ghana at a higher rate, then be prepared to suffer what we call reinvestment risk. The fact that you may not find the same instrument with the same risk and revenue characteristics to reinvest the money when you are giving, then compels you to lock in for a longer period. And the government of Ghana gives you that opportunity to lock in at a tenure other than the tenure that the central bank will give you. And if you decide that you're a business, you rather think long term and not short term.
Short term. Now, I want to bring you to something that is happening.
But I'm saying this to let you understand that
Yes.
it is the reason the market is recalibrating. You can see the last one that was done on Friday. We saw an oversubscription return to the market once again.
Right. Okay. Now, how did you feel, and I'm being specific, when Dr. Baumia mentioned that from the Okwe report, the NPP lost the elections because of DDEP, the economy, and hardship, among others? How did that make you feel?
For me, it reminded me of the kind of people we're dealing with. They knew this all along.
They knew?
Yes. He cannot say that he's only gotten to know in opposition. They knew this all along. Even when we told the people of Ghana, they fought us.
Because they believed that it was, the challenges were occasioned externally.
No. They believed that they could withhold the people of Ghana. They believed that they could lie to the people of Ghana. And they believed that the people of Ghana did not have the capacity to comprehend what was happening. Everybody knows that in the world, a major investment principle you learn, investment 101, is that government of Ghana, government borrows, they are risk-free. Is that not the case? That was what Baumia learned, and that's what he even taught himself. For the first time, we were told to unlearn all of that in this country. That, in fact, giving money to Adongo could be more risk-free than giving money to the government. And they looked us in the face when a government that had entered into a contract of trust with the people of Ghana could break that trust. And they thought that we were foolish enough not to know that we have been shortchanged and that all the promises they made to us, they didn't intend to keep them. Suddenly, future generations with the difficult task of rebuilding that trust that allowed the capital market to operate. Now you go on a thank you. This should be an apology tour, a deception tour.
But they need to thank the people for voting
So
for
you
them.
need to tell the people that we are sorry, we lied to you, we apologize for lying to you, we apologize for hurting you and for mismanaging the economy. But when we come back, we have learned our lessons and we'll do better. And show the people you are bringing to come and do that. Not the same faces that have demonstrated incapacity. The same faces. The man who locked the dollar and it didn't take 2 months for the dollar to escape. As we speak now, the dollar is still a fugitive. And I kept telling him, make an effort to arrest that dollar and take it to court and hear what the dollar will tell you. You will be embarrassed. Because you see, like I keep telling you, I tell you that yes, we are seeing relative stability, but we are not out of the woods. Because foreign exchange activities are a longer period of anchor. And that if events plus policy combine to give you some stability, you don't climb the rooftop and tell the people that you are the best economist in the world and that you have arrested and put it under lock and key. You just returned from this place here, Bank of Ghana here, and you didn't learn that? You didn't learn that. So, well, I'm sure a lot more will come out. I will not be surprised if they start slapping each other, because now people are now saying, so you knew all these things and you made us waste our time? You knew you had mismanaged the economy? How can a major policy of government be DDP? Your major policy, economic policy, is debt restructuring, declaring bankruptcy.
Yes, because we're saddled with so much.
Who saddled us? When you were going there and borrowing 3 billion a year to eat kinky and fish, didn't you know that you pay for them? And I keep telling, I think on this show I told the other time, that when you borrow in foreign currency, you don't throw them onto the Makola market. Because those foreign currencies, when they come into your account, they are like tourists. When they finish their tour, they'll go home.
Fly.
You have gone to drop them at Makola in search of a predetermined exchange rate, a single-digit depreciation of a currency. So when the time comes for them to go home, where are you going to find them? In the Makola market? Very simple knowledge of currency management and anchoring external vulnerability. But this man didn't know this. Let me tell you, one of the worst things that Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia did to our central bank was to encourage the level of scrutiny that the central bank received. You see, the central bank, that is why economists don't make depreciation of a currency a goal variable. When we say a goal variable, you don't set up your budget and say that I'm going to end with the depreciation of the cedi at 9%. You know why? Because it is based on the exigencies of the time and the deployment of the shock absorbers at the central bank in order to deal with the emerging challenges. So 20%, if it ends at 20%, that gives you stability, that is an appropriate depreciation rate. If it is 30%, that gives you that stability, it's an appropriate exchange rate. Bawumia said, if you did not get a single digit, predetermined single digit, you have failed. And ended up with 54%. You know why? Because clearly he didn't understand the dynamics of currency management. Currency management is not inflation, where we can actually predict long term and say medium term and say plus or minus 8% plus or minus 2. We don't do that for currency depreciation because it is not a goal variable.
But they had the men.
Those are the men. Now apologizing and telling us that they've ruined us. And now the same men say they want to come back. We are still nursing our wounds. Tell them. And that there's good news in the economy where we are not only giving away money that they took from the poor, but we are making sure that we're investing more on things that touch the poor. You saw Ejumapa? You saw that? You saw the National Apprenticeship Program? You saw Mahama Cares? These are pro-poor interventions. You saw, what do you call it, the sanitary towels that were given to our girls?
The free sanitary towels.
Exactly.
The girls in secondary
That is how you generate trusts, tax the people fairly, and spend wisely.
But they say that on the thank you tour, what they're also picking up is that the people are not necessarily excited about this new administration. They are seeing doomsaw still lingering. People's lights are out and things. So it's like they sold their colored TV for black and white.
So the people are excited at the man who came to say that I messed you up. The excitement is in a thank you tour that has turned into a blame game. A blame game.
They say they are still healing.
Some people say it is arrogance. Others will say it is not arrogance. Then the horse's own mouth, the economic messiah, say that I mismanaged the economy into debt distress and created a problem for you with debt restructuring. Didn't he say that? As a matter of fact, any most important thing that happened to this country, he was not aware. He was not aware.
He was the driver's mate. He was not the driver. And so, yes, he would have dissenting. For instance, e-levy, he said he had a dissenting opinion.
Did you hear that? Did you hear that when e-levy was being passed?
No.
Did you hear that? You know, the IMF program. One, it is not IMF that imposed the taxes on the people of Ghana. That is why they didn't understand that we could remove e-levy. Because they thought that it was IMF. They lied to us that IMF came and imposed e-levy. IMF doesn't impose taxes. What IMF does is to say that based on your ailment, this is the medicine that will kill you.
Okay.
And the medicine is that you should do a revenue to your GDP at 18%. It comes up to a certain quantum of money. Then you agree that that's the solution. So now go and come and tell us how you deploy your tax operations to deliver that 18%. We call that mobilization, resource mobilization strategy. So you come here, and the only strategy you know from all the economics that you went to learn as Simon Fraser is e-levy, betting tax. And you quickly carried that one under your armpit. In fact, IMF came here and met you in your office, and you were nodding at e-levy and justifying why you were imposing e-levy. This is the man who is now telling you that. So that e-levy was put into our resource mobilization strategy by and went to convince the IMF that they should allow them to impose e-levy because that's the only way they can raise the money. A new government comes and says, no, hold on. Who told you that that's the only way? Who told you that you tax the poor to finance development of the rich?
Is that not why he also promised to get rid of e-levy during, in the lead up to
I'm
the
saying that
elections?
you go to create a problem. You speak to you very well.
Yes.
He goes to destroy the water at the far end, and then he comes here to ask, Charlie, who has destroyed this water? You went to IMF, you and I didn't go there. When they came, they didn't come to Adongo. They came to you in your office, Vice President, the economic manager, the head of the economic management team, who had approved e-levy at economic management team meeting and parceled to be sent to the IMF. The IMF followed you here and wanted to be sure that you actually ferried that to them. He said yes, with alacrity. And you were nodding your head. You know the way he nods his head. And laughing uncoordinatedly. They approved and gave you money. You took the money, 1.2 billion you took before you left, dollars. The promise that you tax the people e-levy, you took 1.2 billion here, dollars. And they gave you the money. Then somebody comes and says, look, we are social democrats. Our friends are the poor and the vulnerable. So we say that when to me and Bawasi Akoma, so if we cannot give you enough money, we must not be taking the little that you have. And we came to Parliament and we had promised the people that you can trust us to tax you fairly. And that fair tax regime is to focus on the rich and give back the money to the poor. So we forcibly took the money from the poor and gave it back to them. The money that you took and you were on your way to Jubilee, when your mama arrived, they say, hey, stop, go back with the boxes. Go and give them to the poor where you took it from. Do you understand?
Yes.
Now the man says that, if you had given me the chance, I would have returned the boxes anyway. Who does it? You know, look, in any serious country, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia should be in hiding. He should be in hiding. The disgrace you have given to this country. And to find this young man, Atuforse, do the kind of job he's done out of your mess in just less than 3 months. You should be calling for a tea break with him to learn from him how this was done.
But Dr. Bawumia needs to learn from the finance minister currently.
I'm telling you,
how
he shouldn't even go alone. They should go in tow. He and Amin Anta. As Ken Kama here is coming in May.
Yes, he will come next.
They should just give him a safe passage. That there's a meeting at the Ministry of Finance to go and meet Honorable Atuforse to find out from him how he did this one. You won't go and learn. You are still out there bragging and saying those things out of your empty knowledge. I mean, I'm really surprised.
Right.
I'm really surprised. Go to IMF. Ghana is a shining star.
That's what came out.
Every room we enter, everybody wants to listen to us. Right. And people are asking, how did you do this? Okay? How did you do this? Ghana, Sri Lanka, and Pakistan. The only challenge with Pakistan is because it's largely an informal economy and it is becoming difficult for them to find the right mix of policies and strategies to take advantage and formalize the economy. But Ghana, Sri Lanka has a very good story to tell. As a matter of fact, I personally told my team we have to go and listen to the Sri Lanka story. But when I entered, I just told them, look, we have a better story, you know. So we have a better story, but nevertheless, it is good to know that one of the challenged economies is beginning to see some day of light.
Interested.
Fortunately, they were not being managed by Amin Anta and the Kennedy.
So now, I mean, you're on the board of the Bank of Ghana.
Yes.
And in the recent past, we've heard about the bank posting losses.
Yes.
And we've had cause to question why that is so.
Yeah.
The new governor says we should not expect the bank to be posting losses going forward.
Yes.
That should be reassuring.
2025, You know, we haven't yet published the 2024 results.
Yes.
So if you saw losses, don't go and say that he lied. They are in respect of 2024.
Right.
But going forward into 2025, we are doing a lot of work to bring improvement to the operations of the bank and provide the appropriate leadership and the governance framework that it needs. We are focusing a lot on improving risk management. We are focusing a lot on streamlining in fact, try to exit the gold for oil and develop better.
You're trying to exit that?
Yeah, and develop better systems of supporting the economy. We know that one of our biggest problems is the energy sector and how we can provide forest funding to externalize the payment to the IPPs. We are working assiduously to achieve that. And we are also aware that there is an obligation for us to ensure that there is serious monetary policy solvency at the bank, and we're working very hard to achieve that.
How challenging is the energy sector? Because we are crippled with debts in that sector.
So just think about the fact that the government has had to budget for 28 billion Ghana cedis to deal with energy sector shortfalls. Start thinking about what that amount of money will do to our health sector, what that amount of money will do to education. Okay? But it is going into energy sector shortfalls. And we have had to undertake one of the boldest reforms to ensure that we are able to fund this. So we decided that the ESLA levy that they fought us and still continue to use it to go and collect loans, we have agreed to pay the loans from central government and make the room available to use it to fund the energy sector.
Right.
We have decided to rationalize the taxes on sanitation and add those ones to the energy sector, and legislated that the money should be spent only on the energy sector activities. So we do have a sustainable vehicle now for tackling the energy sector problem. But going forward, we do know that there are some operational and commercial losses that have to be tackled. And how we will do that, the Minister for Energy is on top of it.
Right.
You know, he's been on my colleague on the Finance Committee. I do believe that he will leave Ghana a very strong, viable.
But as it stands now, I mean, effective May 1, we're paying 14% more for electricity in terms of tariff, and it has to do with the IMF conditionality, among others. But still,
so if we are not reviewing the IMF program, one of the bitter pills that they push down our throat is that they went and signed that every quarter
tariff adjustment.
There will be tariff adjustment. The only reason they didn't do it in December was because the election was there. Just look at the previous quarters. Every quarter they reviewed it, isn't it? Then when it goes to the election, suddenly the mechanism stopped. And when we came, because of the debt they left in the energy sector and the threat from the energy,
the
IPPs and the rest, we needed to find a solution. And so IMF said, how are you going to deal with it? Especially that you need to go back, you know, to be on top of the original regime for which your previous people took $1.2 billion. If you cannot go back and do that, bring our money.
And so
1.2 billion, we don't have it. So if we don't have it, Anta, come and explain. Come and remove your mouth. How you sign such an agreement with the IMF.
Right.
So it is not His Excellency John Dramani Mahama who is increasing the electricity tariffs. It is an inheritance from the people who went and took $1.2 billion from the IMF and agreed that that is the only solution they have. Now when we get the respite, we will begin to do appropriate investment in order to eliminate some of the operational challenges and the commercial losses that we face.
Right.
And you can see already that we are trying to improve the governance of ECG, and that is why we are digging into some of the things that have happened and all of that. And we do believe that we will soon have a handle on ECG and other such state interest corporations.
Mr. Adongo, it's been really exciting talking to you again, and I hope to have you here another time. But thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much, and thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Always.
The good news must be told.
Definitely.
It is very difficult to tell good news, but good news on the economy on any day.
We will definitely tell it. Isaac Adongo is Member of Parliament for Bolgatanga Central. He's also a member of the governing board of the Bank of Ghana, having a conversation with me on the economy and matters, more matters that are related to our finances here. He's also the chairman of the Finance Committee of Parliament. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for making time to watch State of Affairs tonight. We're back same time on Monday, next week Monday, with another edition. But let me tell you more, because MTN says SIM cards are going for just 10 Ghana cedis. So you can just buy 5 for 50 and share to your friends and family to say happy birthday to them or whatever the occasion is. Remember, just go with your Ghana card to be able to register. I am Joshua Kodjo Mensah. Do have a wonderful night.